Fantastic. So, today we will speak of on the most important part of the elements we must take in account when we design something. Can you guess what is? Who? People, our customer. We write software and design software for somebody. And so the most important part is the multitude of people that will use our software. You know, in the past, when computers were built up for the first time, the computer was called the central system, and people was called periphery. Now things changed, because logically, the most important thing is the brain of the customer. Then the computer can do whatever we want. So in order to understand how to design an interface, we must, before all, understand how it works, the mind of the person that will look and use it. What is this? You know this? You have one of these? Yeah, this is a brain. The brain is actually the target of all our work. On the other side of the screen, there are some eyes, but then there is the brain of the customer. The brain is a pretty complex system and is divided in different areas. We don't have time to go deep in each of the areas of the brain, but we will discuss about something that is needed for design. As I told you, most of these things, most probably you have already seen somewhere, but we will focus on the one you must have in mind when you design an interface. So the complexity of the brain is due to the fact that the functions are a lot and must be correlated. Do you have an idea who is this guy? Phineas Gage? Never heard about it? In 18-something, this was a guy, was a miner in the US. And they had an explosion, uncontrolled, and a piece of metal entered the brain of this guy. It was a sort of a miracle, because he didn't die. He was pretty well after some time. But what happened was that he changed totally his personality. Before the accident, he was a very bad person, was beating the wife, going around every night to drink, you know, what you call a not a good person. After this accident, he became a fantastic person. Very good, very quiet, giving no problem to anybody. Why I tell you this? Because this was the first time we had an idea of the fact that the different parts of the brain do different things. And in particular, the frontal part of the brain, so this part, is where our subconscious is the part of the brain that works all alone and does a lot of things that we don't feel are done. But they're there. You know that we have a lot of things that are totally unconscious. When you meet a person, look at the face of the person, you say, I like this, I don't like this person. If I ask you why, it's very difficult to say, because it's something that is coming from your unconscious. The unconscious part is also the one that gives you the phobias. Phobias, or phobias in English, is when you don't like something. Is anybody here that does not like to fly? You don't like to fly? Yeah, there is a lot of people. And there is no reason, because if I well remember, you are from India. From where?
From Madhya Pradesh, central part.
Central part of India. Okay, so if you go home now and consider the risk you have going home, the real risk is from the airport to the house, especially in India, where you get tuk-tuk like this, where people, you know, when you go to India, the only thing, I go to India very often, but the only thing I do not do to India is drive, because driving is a totally different thing. You know, sometimes you see people in the highway going in the wrong direction. Sometimes people is crossing very fast. But, you know, if you reason, the dangerous part is the one you don't fear. You fear the fly because of some reason, because the idea is that we are not built to be in the air. An incredible thing happened about this, because this guy is called Freeman, Dr. Freeman. He invented the lobotomy. What is the lobotomy? The lobotomy is when you have somebody that is mad, that is making trouble, you put a piece of, do the same thing. You put the piece of metal inside, passing through the eye, and you do chick, 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 chick. So you destroy the frontal part of the brain, and he becomes very good. He stays all his life very quiet. You know, at that time, we didn't have this kind of medicament. Thorazine has been the first medicine for brain. And so what happened is that people was there, and they were good, and the family was glad because they were not dangerous. The horrible thing that, you know, that this guy got a Nobel Prize for this? Can you imagine the incredible thing? If you are interested in this kind of thing, and you should be interested, because the most important thing for a designer is to understand the brain that is on the other side. But even if you design object, you know, it's always a brain that looks at the object, is this book. Have you read this book? You absolutely should read. This Oliver Sacks was a neurophysiologist, and he wrote this book, The Man That Mistook the Wife for a Hat. And it's a strange title, but it speaks about the problem that the brain can have and the reason why. Where is the problem? For instance, this syndrome is a syndrome that gives to a person, it becomes not capable to connect object with the name of the object. So he could come to you and say, oh, here you have a pen. Or instead of telling you have a pen, please give me, I have to write down something, he will ask you, oh, you are an elephant. Can you give me, I can write down something. Because he has lost the connection between a word and the meaning. And in this book, it goes through all these kind of different possible variation of on how the brain works, and explains the functionality of the brain, studying this variation. The most important thing we need to understand in order to have a good idea in design is memory. Memory is a very complex and very interesting part of your brain. Memory is divided in three parts. One part is the sensorial memory. The sensorial memory is the one that gives me, if I do like this, in my brain arrives a signal that says you are touching something, and if I do like this, say you are touching something that is metallic, because my senses are able to say this is a metal. Then you have the short-term memory. Short-term memory is the one you use for doing things. For instance, I am standing, and my short-term memory understands that I am standing, and if I move, says that I move, and I look something, and I stop instead of going through, because my short-term memory has an image on what's happening. And then you have the long-term memory. Long-term memory can be very long. Sometimes, I remember my grandfather, yes, he was a doctor, and he has done a lot of war because he was born in 1910. So he's done the first world, was the first, maybe not the first one, but we have done some work in Africa, the Second World War. And speaking with him when he was very old, he died almost 100 years old, he was capable to tell you what happened during the First World War when he was combating, but then he didn't remember if we have eaten or not, because the short-term memory was out. So let's have a look to the memory. This is the Atkinson-Shiffrin model of memory. So we have sensory memory that comes from what we sense, the light we see, for instance. Short-term memory, sensory memory is almost immediately forgotten because it's overcome from the other memory that arrives. Short-term memory has a decay that we will see can be from 1 minute to 10 minutes, 15 minutes. And then we have the long-term memory. All of them are connected together in a way that we should try to understand. Persistence, how long the memory stays in your brain. 1 to 3 seconds is the sensorial memory. 15 to 25 seconds short term. 1 second to lifetime, because you can forget something immediately, but something you don't forget, you keep for all your life. Sensorial memory gets information from the senses. Senses is taste, hearing, sight, smell, and touch. The sensorial memory puts things together in a way that makes us work well. It defends us against danger, for instance. But it's not so easy to understand how it works. This is part of my family. It's my cat, it's called a tiger. And I show you, do you like cats? Do you have any cat in family? Somebody has had a cat? Okay. Normally, when you think about, this is a special cat, it's a tiger. That is the connection between a Bengal, that is an Indian cat, and an American cat, and is the most similar to tiger. It's very difficult to manage, but it's fantastic. When you think about a cat, you think that they are hunters. They are like tigers, like leopard. What do you think about the sight of a cat? How is the sight of a cat? Do you have an idea if it's very good or not? No one has an idea? Normally people think that they have a very good sight because the cat is very attentive to everything. If you move, it moves with you immediately. The interesting thing that it has an horrible life, because this is the way we see something, and this is the way the cat sees something. They practically do not see colors, or see colors very fade. But they are very good in the night. In the night, they see much better than we see. So, why I told you about this? Because when you think about the reaction of people, for instance, to our system, we should think about all senses. This is the reason why sound, good usage of sound, for instance, in webs or in keyboard, is a very good thing. They have done a lot of work demonstrating that a keyboard that makes click, 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 makes you make as few errors than the keyboard is totally silent. Sensorial memory is a buffer, is a raw information, there is no elaboration, does not require attention. You cannot avoid to have sensorial memory. Do you have seen, qual era quel film dove suonavano sempre Beethoven? Torturavano la gente.
Clockwise Orange.
Do you have seen Clockwise Orange movie? It's a masterpiece in the history of cinema, of movie, and for some reason they want to torture a person, and what they do, they open the eye of the person mechanically. You can never close the eye, but it's the same thing that is done, for instance, when you want to torture somebody. In Guantanamo, it's an horrible thing, but US leave people that are considered terrorists all the day with light and sound. And they become mad because you cannot close your ear. And as we told, there is a limited persistence. The most limited is the sight. If I look at somebody and then the other, I immediately forget what I have looked at before. Short-term memory. Short-term memory, we told it is short. There is people that as a syndrome, the lack of short-term memory. They immediately forget things. And believe me, a friend of mine, she has this problem, and it's horrible. It's really horrible. She does not forget things. She does not remember things done 5 minutes before. Short-term memory has a limited capacity. From 7 plus minus 2 elements. This is a very important thing for designer. 7 elements can be remembered. 90 elements, no. We will see is the reason why a good menu should never be more than 7, 8 elements. Long menu are very difficult to use. Short persistent, if you repeat and give attention, you will remember. If you go in the same website every day, then you will remember. Why? Because it goes from short-term memory to long-term memory. New inputs recover the other. 7 plus minus 2 is called the Miller magic number. Was some study done by this guy. Is the School of Psychology of Palo Alto. Has anybody here been a Boy Scout? No one? Really? One at least. Where? Where you were? Sorry? Okay. I was the Italian Scout Master for a while. You know, in Boy Scouts, it's a pity because it's a very nice experience to do in the life. There is tu sai cosa è il gioco di Kim? The play, this is called the Kim play, because Boy Scouts are all, everything is, say, studied to educate people. The Kim play is, I show you some object, 20, 11, then I cover them, and I asked you to remember where the objects were. It's interesting because I have seen that the Kim is not only done by Boy Scout, but is done also by United States Marines, because it's a way of educating the brain to remember things. And when you combat, remember is very important. There's an experiment about this, Brown and Peterson in '54. What they did, they say how many items and how long you can keep them in your mind. The experiment was done like this. You take somebody, you give some information, and then you tell him, count backward from 11 to 0. If you do something that needs your brain, you will forget faster. And the more the elements are, the faster you will forget. There are also very interesting things if you make two groups of objects, one is fruit and the other is meat, not meat. If you stay in the same group, you forget. If you change group, you forget more rapidly, because it looks like your brain is catalogating things. So if you speak about fruit, you make many mess up than speaking about something else. I have put also some link somewhere about this. Just very rapidly, if I give you these letters, and then I ask you to count back like this, you will forget almost immediately the letter. 15 letters, you forget immediately, even not counting. It's very difficult to remember. But if there is a meaning, you will forget. William Macmillan is 15, but it's a meaning, so it's something that you store in your other brain. 6 words are pretty difficult to remember. 9 words are almost impossible to remember unless there is a meaning. You know which phrase, this phrase, what is? You never heard about this? Is a way of testing keyboard, because it's a phrase with all the letters of the alphabet. This is in Italian, this is in French, it is very good. It's bring the old whiskey to the blonde judge that fumes. But you know, of course there is no meaning, but it's used and it's much more easy to remember. It's okay? You got it? That was sensorial. Let's go to short-term memory. Short-term memory, sorry, it was short-term memory. Anxiety makes you forget more easily what you have to remember. This is the reason why, for instance, when you design a cockpit of a plane, you need to do things in a way that makes people remember things, colors, say, shapes, because in airplane, like in an operating theater, you can have some anxiety moment. We should think about this. For instance, if you make a website that makes e-commerce, one moment of anxiety of person is when they have to pay. When there is money, everybody has the idea that somebody is stealing your money or losing your money. So we must be even more well-designers. That's what I told now. No, when you give message, you must be very careful, because if they are too complex, and this is a long story about message, nobody will really understand them. because they are anxious. You are writing something. Maybe you have lost something. The message that came out must be very simple. Let's have the system do whatever it can do. Avoid to use the brain of your customer unless it's useful. Long-term memory. I put it here elephant because you know that there is it's true. Elephant, they say they have very long memory. And elephants, I love elephants. In India, there are some quite fantastic places where they grew up, small elephants, and they are incredible. But the elephant, and it's very useful, is used to work in India. But they are very dangerous. They are very dangerous because if they get mad, they make a lot of disaster. And it looks like they have a very long memory. If when they were very small were beaten by somebody, then 10 years after, they get to the same person and kill her because they have a very, very long memory. Long-term memory is virtually limitless. You can remember whatever you want. But it's based on association. You remember things because they are associated. If you use frequently, you have seen not too much time ago, there are a lot of association, and there is no interference with other things, you will remember much better. The interference problem is important. You should never use, for instance, in a menu, very similar word. Try to make things different. Long-term memory is divided in three important parts. One is procedural, means to know how to do something. When you go in a bicycle, or you drive a car, or you write, you don't think about your writing. You have a procedural memory that makes you write. Then you have declarative memory, know that are sometimes general knowledge, is something you learned, and sometimes are episode of your life. Of course, it depends. Don't laugh, but you know how many times I married? Guess. Nobody guess? No, Paolo? I married 4 times. You know, so sometimes I have some problem in remembering which one was. But if you marry once, normally you remember all your life. We spoke about interference. There are 2 types of possible interference, to name Julie and Judy. It can happen that you knew a person called Julie, and then today you know one called Judy, and Judy overrides the old one, or maybe that the old one overrides the new one. So you are unable to remember something because you already remember something that is very similar. And if you want, you find in the internet, there are a lot of work about the fact that with repetition you remember, but you know very well. If you want to learn a poetry, what you do? You stay there and repeat until you remember. That's a forgetting curve. Another book to read absolutely is this one. There are a lot of Freud books, simple Freud book to be written, but this one is mandatory and speaks a lot about this kind of thing. There are cases of people with immense memory. Pico della Mirandola was one of them, but you remember, have you seen this movie picture? No? People, you must, masterpiece is a person that is an autistic person that has a memory very long. This interesting guy I have seen in New York is a person that looks at a city and then draw the city, and if you look, it's exactly equal to the one he has looked for 10 seconds. Okay, this already told about, and this is the mechanism, how it works. Sensorial memory, go to short-term memory, it can go to long-term memory. So the information can go from one to another. Here, we don't stay to see there is a better understanding of the reaction timing. Do you have an idea what is this two formula? This is a differential equation, very complicated differential equation. Is the calculation you must make to determine when you are in a bicycle how much you have to turn to go in a certain direction in different speed. Why I show you this? Because our brain is capable of doing automatically very, very, very complex calculation. Told you before, feedback is important. A keyboard that makes click, 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 click is better than the silent keyboard. That's the problem why the first tablet were not able. The nowadays tablet, they have this haptic system that makes a little vibration. This is a way of giving feedback. This was the old way, but it's already like this. When you move something from one place to another on an apple, you will have this kind of information. So you have an idea on what's happening. We've already finished at some time. There is a law that's called the fifth law. The fifth law says, basically, how difficult it is to reach a target. And we're not speaking only about say screen, also physical target. In a plane, it's very important, this law. When something is far, you need to do it bigger in order to be able to reach in a safe way. In the plane, they've done a lot of study about there are something that cannot be overcome. If you have fire on an engine and you extinguish the engine, the fire, you will not be ever able to light it up again. So must be very careful to touch the right one. And so the buttons are very big in order to reach them in a safe way. So the fifth law says that you start from a way, you have slow, fast, medium time. Let's say the time to reach properly a button is the ratio between distance and size. This is the right formula, but you don't have to understand the formula. The idea is when you design a button on the screen, you must take in account the idea on where will be my customer when he will push that button, and if will be mostly far, make it big in designing page. You know what is this? Never seen? This is the first mouse. Douglas Engelbart invented the mouse. It was invented for military reason, for radar control. And the interesting thing is that the fifth law is almost the same for every kind of pointer, from mouse to pen to touch screen. So this idea of making bigger things that are commanded from far is a generic thing. We must remember that good, you know this guy? You know this guy? We have a French person here, no? Not here today? Ah, you know this guy. People, if you have not read Asterix, you must read Asterix. Asterix is another masterpiece. This is the druid of Asterix, and makes the magic potion that make the Gauls very strong. But the idea is, always remember that good design is done from a mixture of different things. For instance, we spoke about the fit law and the 7 plus 2 minus 2 rule. We must take in account, for instance, when we design menu. The pie menu that is not used much is very good because every element is near to the center. You can use pop-up menu, but when it becomes very long, this is difficult to reach. So it's important to put the most important before. And you can make a lot of different kind of menu. So design is a way of putting things together in an orderly way. Okay. So we can make really 5 minutes, and then we'll do the other one. Rimani un attimo, arrivo.